My name is Nick Brennan, and I used to think I was lucky. 42 years old, successful construction business, decent house in Millbrook Harbor, Maine, and a wife who still turned heads when she walked into a room. Used to think a lot of things, actually, like how marriage was supposed to be about trust, or how your wife's family would eventually warm up to you after 20 years. I was wrong about everything. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. It started on a Tuesday night in October, rain hammering our old colonial-like bullets against glass. I'd been up late going over job estimates when Jenna's phone started buzzing on the kitchen counter. She was upstairs, probably asleep, but that damn thing kept lighting up like a Christmas tree. Either our marriage is alive, or someone else is, I muttered, walking over to silence it. The screen showed 3 missed calls from L and a string of text messages. I shouldn't have looked. 20 years of marriage, and I'd never snooped through her phone. But something about the late hour, the insistence of those calls, made my gut twist. The first message made my blood freeze. He's working late again. Perfect timing. The second one nearly dropped me to my knees. You're right about Nick. He thinks he's so clever, but he'd never see you coming. Meet me at the usual place tomorrow. The third was just an address. The Seaside Motel on Route 1. I set the phone down carefully, my hands shaking. Through our kitchen window, I could see Mrs. Delaney's house across the street, her living room window glowing yellow in the darkness. That old bat never slept, always watching, always knowing everyone's business before they knew it themselves. 20 years. 20 goddamn years I'd been building this life, this business, this marriage. I'd worked 16-hour days to buy Jenna everything she wanted. The house, the car, the vacations to places I couldn't pronounce. I'd put up with her mother's snide comments about my blue-collar limitations and her brother Derek's constant suggestions that Jenna had married beneath her potential. Derek, that entitled piece of work, had been circling our marriage like a vulture since day one, always whispering poison in Jenna's ear about how she deserved better, how she was too sophisticated for a simple contractor. He'd graduated from Harvard Business School and never let anyone forget it, especially me. Every family gathering was an opportunity for him to demonstrate his superiority, to remind everyone that his sister had settled for less. The rain kept pounding, and I found myself thinking about the early days. How Jenna used to come to my job sites, bringing coffee and sandwiches, proud to show me off to anyone who'd listen. When had that stopped? When had I become the embarrassment she had to explain away at her architectural firm's dinner parties? I knew exactly when. It was 3 years ago, at Derek's wedding reception. I'd been talking to some of his Harvard buddies about a restoration project I was doing on a historic mansion, genuinely excited about the craftsmanship involved. Derek had walked over, drink in hand, and said with that perfect smile of his, "Nick's being modest. He's basically a really expensive handyman." The laughter that followed wasn't cruel, just dismissive. But I saw something change in Jenna's face that night, like she was seeing me through their eyes for the first time, and she didn't like what she saw. The phone buzzed again. Another message from L. "Can't wait to feel you again. Nick's loss is definitely my gain." I had to grip the counter to keep from throwing the phone against the wall. My wife was cheating on me, and whoever this L was, they were getting off on the betrayal itself. The disrespect wasn't just casual, it was gleeful. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Jenna appeared in the kitchen doorway, wearing the silk nightgown I'd bought her for our anniversary. Her dark hair was perfectly tousled, her makeup somehow still flawless, even though she'd supposedly been asleep. "Everything okay?" she asked, but her eyes went straight to her phone. "Fine," I said, sliding it across the counter to her. "Your phone was buzzing. Thought it might be important." She snatched it up, her fingers flying over the screen. I watched her face carefully, looking for guilt, panic, anything. But Jenna had always been good at controlling her expressions. It came with the territory in her profession, all those client meetings where she had to smile and nod while people described their terrible ideas for their dream homes. "Just work stuff," she said without looking up. "You know how it is." "Yeah," I said. "I know exactly how it is." She looked at me then, something sharp in her green eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that work never really stops, does it? Always someone calling, always somewhere you need to be." "That's rich, coming from you. How many dinners have I eaten alone because you were dealing with some crisis at a job site?" She was deflecting, turning it around on me. Classic Jenna. But I could see something else in her posture now. A defensive tension that hadn't been there before. "You're right," I said. "I should be more considerate of your time, especially when you have important meetings." Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, and I caught the briefest flash of panic before she forced her expression back to neutral. "I'm going back to bed," she said. "Try not to stay up all night with those estimates." She kissed my cheek, the same perfunctory peck she'd been giving me for months, and headed back upstairs. I waited until I heard our bedroom door close, then walked to the window. Mrs. Delaney's silhouette was visible behind her curtains, probably wondering why our kitchen light was still on at midnight. Tomorrow, I decided, I was going to find out exactly what kind of meeting my wife had planned at the seaside motel. The next evening, I told Jenna I had to check on a job site that was running behind schedule. She barely looked up from her laptop. "Don't wait up," she said. "I'm having dinner with Tracy, then we might catch a movie." Tracy Morrison, Jenna's best friend since college. Another architect, another person who'd never quite approved of Jenna's choice in husbands. I'd fired Tracy from a subcontracting job 5 years ago when I caught her padding invoices, and she'd never forgiven me. The fact that she was stealing from me didn't seem to matter to her, only that I'd had the audacity to call her on it. "Have fun," I said, and meant it. I hoped she'd have a wonderful time explaining to Tracy why her marriage was about to implode. The seaside motel was exactly what you'd expect from the name. A rundown strip of rooms facing the ocean, the kind of place that rented by the hour and didn't ask questions. I parked across the street at a gas station and waited. Jenna's silver BMW pulled in at 7:30. She sat in the car for a few minutes, checking her makeup in the rearview mirror, then walked to room 12. She had a key. 10 minutes later, a black Mercedes arrived. The man who got out was tall, well-dressed, probably mid-40s. He moved with the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about money or consequences. I didn't recognize him, but something about his bearing screamed corporate success. He knocked on the door of room 12. Jenna opened it, and they embraced like lovers who'd been apart for months instead of hours. I sat in my truck, hands clenched on the steering wheel, watching my marriage die in real time. Part of me wanted to storm over there, kick down the door, and drag them both into the parking lot. But I'm not that kind of man. I'd never been that kind of man. Instead, I drove home and waited. Jenna came back at 11:30, her hair slightly mussed, her lipstick gone. She smelled like expensive cologne and lies. "How was the movie?" I asked. "Good," she said without hesitation. "That new romantic comedy. Tracy loved it." "What was it called?" A pause. Just a heartbeat, but I caught it. "The one with Ryan Reynolds. You wouldn't like it." There was no new Ryan Reynolds movie playing anywhere in town. I'd checked. "Probably not," I agreed. "I'm more of an action guy." She nodded and headed for the shower. While the water ran, I went through her purse. Credit card receipt from the seaside motel, dated today. Room 12, paid for a week in advance. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a full-blown affair. I was still sitting on the bed when she came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her like armor. "We need to talk," I said. "About what?" I held up the receipt. "About this." The color drained from her face, but she recovered quickly. "You went through my purse? You're cheating on me, and you're worried about privacy." She sat down on the edge of the bed, suddenly looking very tired. "Nick, Who is he?" "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think. Who is he?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. "Liam Fitzgerald. He's my boss at the firm." The name hit me like a punch to the gut. I knew that name. Jenna had mentioned him dozens of times over the past year, always with a little too much enthusiasm. How brilliant he was. How he was revolutionizing the company. How lucky she was to work under him. Under him. Jesus Christ. "How long?" I asked. 3 months. 3 months of lies. 3 months of coming home to me after being with him. 3 months of me working my ass off to provide for a woman who was screwing her boss in cheap motel rooms. Why? She looked up at me then, and I saw something I'd never seen before in her eyes. Not guilt, not shame. Contempt. "Because you're not enough," she said quietly. "You never were." The words hit harder than any physical blow could have. 20 years of marriage, and that's what it came down to. I wasn't enough. "Derek was right," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "I did settle. I was young and stupid, and I thought love would be enough. But it's not, Nick. It's really not." "So you decided to cheat instead of asking for a divorce?" "I was going to tell you, eventually. But Liam thinks we should be careful about how we handle this. He has a reputation to consider." Of course he did. Couldn't have the successful architect's reputation tarnished by a messy affair with a married subordinate. Better to let the blue-collar husband twist in the wind while they figured out the cleanest way to dispose of him. "Get out," I said. "What?" Get out of my house. Tonight. Go stay with Tracy. Go stay with your precious Liam. I don't care. But get out. She stood up, clutching her towel. This is my house, too. No, it's not. I bought this house with money I earned before we got married. I've been paying the mortgage for 20 years with money from my business. You want out of this marriage? Fine. But you don't get to stay here while you figure out your exit strategy. You can't just throw me out. Watch me. I stood up and walked to the closet, pulling out a suitcase. Started throwing her clothes into it, not caring about wrinkles or organization. Stop it! She grabbed my arm. Nick, please, can't we talk about this like adults? I turned to face her, and she stepped back at whatever she saw in my expression. Adults don't sneak around behind their spouse's back for 3 months. Adults don't lie about movie nights when they're really fucking their boss in a motel room. You want to be with Liam? Go be with Liam, but you don't get to have both. She started crying then, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration, of a plan gone wrong. You don't understand the position this puts me in, she said. At work, I mean. If people find out, that's your problem now. I finished packing her suitcase and set it by the bedroom door. You've got 5 minutes to get dressed and get out. After that, I'm changing the locks. You bastard. Yeah, probably. But I'm not a cheating bastard. She got dressed quickly, her movements sharp and angry. As she grabbed her suitcase, she turned back to me one last time. This isn't over, Nick. I'm not just going to disappear because you're having a tantrum. You're right, I said. It's not over, it's just beginning. After she left, I sat in my empty house and started planning. Word travels fast in a town like Millbrook Harbor. By Thursday morning, Mrs. Delaney had already called twice, ostensibly to ask about borrowing my hedge trimmer, but really to fish for information about why Jenna's car hadn't been in our driveway for 2 nights. Everything all right over there, Nick? She asked during the second call, her voice dripping with false concern. Everything's fine, Mrs. Delaney, just some temporary arrangements. Oh, well, if you need anything. What I needed was for the town gossip network to mind its own business, but that wasn't happening. By noon, I'd gotten 3 calls from mutual friends, all asking if Jenna and I were having problems. The 4th call was from Mike Henderson, my oldest friend and the closest thing I had to a brother. We'd grown up together, started our businesses around the same time, stood up at each other's weddings. If anyone deserved the truth, it was Mike. Hey man, I heard some weird rumors, he said without preamble. Sarah ran into Tracy at the grocery store, and she was acting all strange and evasive when Sarah asked about you and Jenna. What kind of strange? Like she knew something she wasn't supposed to know. You guys okay? I almost told him everything, almost. But something held me back. We're working through some things, I said instead. Anything I can do to help? Not right now, but thanks. You sure? You sound like hell. I'm fine, Mike, really. But I wasn't fine. I was angry and hurt, and plotting revenge in ways that probably weren't healthy. I'd spent the last 2 days going over our finances, our assets, our joint accounts. I'd also been doing some research on Liam Fitzgerald. Turned out my wife's boyfriend was quite the success story. Harvard MBA, just like Derek. Divorced, no kids, lived in a penthouse downtown. He joined Jenna's firm 2 years ago and had quickly made himself indispensable. He was also, according to several online reviews from former employees, a complete asshole who took credit for other people's work and threw subordinates under the bus when projects went wrong. Perfect match for my wife, apparently. Friday afternoon, I was at my current job site, a kitchen renovation in one of the town's nicer neighborhoods, when Derek showed up. I saw his BMW pull into the driveway and felt my jaw clench automatically. He walked into the kitchen wearing his usual uniform, expensive suit, perfect hair, expression of barely concealed disdain for everything around him. The homeowners, the Pattersons, were out of town, so it was just me and my crew. Nick, he said with that fake smile of his, we need to talk. My foreman, Bobby, looked up from the cabinet he was installing. You want us to take a break, boss? No, keep working. This won't take long. Derek's smile faltered slightly. He wasn't used to not being the center of attention. It's about Jenna, he said. What about her? She's staying with me and Patricia right now. She's very upset. I'm sure she is. Look, I don't know what happened between you two, but throwing her out of her own home was completely inappropriate. I set down my hammer and turned to face him fully. Her own home? You know what I mean. No, I don't think I do. Explain it to me. Derek glanced around at my crew, clearly uncomfortable with the audience. Can we discuss this privately? I'm working. You came here. Talk. He straightened his tie, a nervous habit I'd noticed over the years. Jenna made a mistake. She knows that. But that doesn't give you the right to humiliate her by making her leave. A mistake, I repeated. Is that what we're calling it? Marriage is complicated, Nick. Sometimes people need space to figure things out. Space. Right. Is that what she was getting in room 12 at the seaside motel? The color drained from his face. I don't know what you're talking about. But he did know. I could see it in his eyes. Jenna had told him everything, probably painted herself as the victim of my unreasonable jealousy. Sure you don't, I said. Just like you don't know about Liam Fitzgerald, or the 3 months of lies, or the credit card receipts. Nick, listen. No, you listen. For 20 years, you've been telling your sister she married beneath her. For 20 years, you've been poisoning her against me, making her feel like she settled for less. Well, congratulations. You finally got what you wanted. That's not... But here's the thing, Derek. I'm not the same guy who used to take your shit at family dinners. I'm not the same guy who smiled and nodded while you explained to everyone how I was holding Jenna back. That guy is gone. I stepped closer to him, close enough that he had to look up to meet my eyes. Derek was tall, but I had 3 inches and 40 pounds on him. If you want to help your sister, tell her to get a good lawyer, because I'm done being the understanding husband. I'm done being the guy who doesn't make waves. From now on, I'm the guy who fights back. Derek's face had gone pale. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you. Stay out of my business, Derek. All of you. Because if you keep pushing, you're going to find out exactly what kind of man your sister really married. He left without another word, his expensive shoes clicking on the Pattersons' hardwood floors. Through the kitchen window, I watched him sit in his car for several minutes before driving away, probably calling Jenna to report on our conversation. Bobby walked over and handed me a beer from the cooler. Friend of yours? Brother-in-law, soon-to-be ex-brother-in-law. Seemed like a real charmer. Yeah, he's a peach. I drank the beer and got back to work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The old Nick would have listened to Derek's bullshit, would have tried to find a way to make peace for Jenna's sake. But the old Nick was married to a woman who loved him. The new Nick was married to a stranger who'd been screwing her boss for 3 months. And the new Nick was just getting started. Saturday morning, I woke up to find my truck's windshield smashed. Someone had thrown a rock through it sometime during the night, leaving a spider web of cracks across the glass. There was a note tucked under the wiper. Back off. I looked across the street. Mrs. Delaney was peeking through her curtains, probably wondering if she should call the police or just enjoy the show. Instead of calling the cops, I called Mike. Jesus, Nick, what the hell is going on? He said when I explained about the windshield. Jenna's family doesn't like how I'm handling the separation. So they're vandalizing your property? That's insane. Yeah, well, desperation makes people do stupid things. You should file a police report. Maybe. Can you recommend a good divorce lawyer? There was a pause. It's really over? It's been over for months. I just didn't know it. Mike gave me the name of his cousin's lawyer, a guy named Mason Crawford, who specialized in difficult divorces. I called Crawford's office and managed to get an appointment for Monday morning. The rest of Saturday was quiet, but Sunday brought a new development. I was having coffee on my front porch when Tracy Morrison pulled into my driveway. She got out of her car like she was walking into battle, her face set in hard lines. We need to talk, she said. No, we don't. You're destroying Jenna's life. Jenna destroyed her own life. I'm just cleaning up the mess. Tracy climbed the porch steps uninvited and stood in front of my chair. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but she carried herself like she was 6 feet and bulletproof. She made a mistake, Tracy said. One mistake, and you're acting like she murdered someone. 3 months isn't a mistake, Tracy. It's a choice. You don't understand the pressure she's under at work. Liam is brilliant, and he saw something in Jenna that I didn't? That you couldn't. You're a good man, Nick, but you're limited. Jenna needs someone who can challenge her intellectually, who can help her grow professionally. I set down my coffee cup and stood up. Tracy took a step back. So she needs someone better than me. Got it. But if that's true, why didn't she just ask for a divorce? Why the sneaking around? Why the lies? Because she knew you'd react exactly like this. She knew you'd try to punish her for outgrowing you. The words hit like a slap. Outgrowing me. As if our 20-year marriage was something she'd simply evolved beyond, like a childhood toy she no longer needed. You know what, Tracy? You're right. I am going to punish her, and I'm going to make this divorce as difficult and expensive as legally possible. I'm going to make sure everyone in town knows exactly what kind of woman she really is. You bastard. Yeah, I'm getting that a lot lately. Tracy's eyes narrowed. You think you're the victim here? You think you're some kind of innocent party? Compared to a cheating wife and her enablers? Yeah, I do. What about the way you've treated Jenna for years? What about the way you've held her back, made her feel guilty for having ambitions beyond this little town? I never held her back from anything. Bullshit. Every time she talked about expanding her practice, you found reasons why it wouldn't work. Every time she wanted to take on bigger projects, you reminded her about the mortgage or the car payments or some other excuse to keep her small. I reminded her about reality, about budgets and practical considerations. You reminded her that she married a man who was afraid of her success. The accusation hung in the air between us like smoke. Was there truth to it? Had I been holding Jenna back without realizing it? Even if that's true, I said finally, it doesn't justify what she did. Doesn't it? Maybe if you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have needed to find what she was missing somewhere else. Get off my property. Nick, get off my property, Tracy, now. She stared at me for a long moment, then shook her head sadly. You used to be a good man. I don't know what happened to you. I grew up, I said, finally. After she left, I sat on my porch for a long time, thinking about what she'd said. Had I held Jenna back? Had I been so focused on building our life together that I'd forgotten to ask what kind of life she actually wanted? It didn't matter now. Whatever mistakes I'd made as a husband, they didn't excuse 3 months of lies and betrayal. They didn't excuse the contempt I'd seen in her eyes when she told me I wasn't enough. Monday morning, I met with Mason Crawford in his downtown office. He was a thin, sharp-faced man in his 50s who looked like he'd been born wearing a suit. Your wife's already retained counsel, he said, after reviewing the basic facts of my case. Patricia Williamson. She's good. How good? Good enough that this is going to get expensive. I don't care about expensive. I care about winning. Crawford leaned back in his chair. Define winning. I want her to get as little as possible. I want everyone to know what she did. I want consequences. The adultery helps, but Maine is a no-fault divorce state. The affair won't necessarily impact property division. Then what will? Depends on what else we can find. Hidden assets, professional misconduct, anything that shows she's been acting in bad faith. I thought about Jenna's sudden interest in my business over the past year. All the questions about contracts and clients that had seemed like genuine curiosity at the time. She might have been sharing information about my business with her boyfriend, I said. Nothing illegal, but maybe unethical. Crawford's eyes lit up. Now that's interesting. If we can prove she was using privileged information to benefit a competitor. What would that mean? It would mean your wife has been very, very stupid. I left Crawford's office feeling better than I had in days. For the first time since finding those text messages, I felt like I had a plan, a path forward that didn't involve me just absorbing blow after blow. But as I walked to my truck, I saw Liam Fitzgerald coming out of the coffee shop across the street. He was tall and handsome in that generic corporate way, with perfect hair and a smile that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He saw me too, and for a moment, we just stared at each other across the street. Then he walked over, his expression friendly and confident. You must be Nick, he said, extending his hand. I'm Liam Fitzgerald. I looked at his outstretched hand like it was a snake. I know who you are. He dropped his hand, but his smile never wavered. I was hoping we could talk, man to man. About what? About Jenna, about handling this situation like civilized adults. I almost laughed. Civilized adults don't fuck other people's wives in cheap motels. His smile finally cracked. Look, I understand you're angry. You understand nothing. I care about Jenna. I want what's best for her. What's best for her is a good lawyer, because she's going to need one. I started to walk away, but he grabbed my arm. Wait, please. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. You've got 3 seconds to let go of me. He released me immediately. I'm trying to be reasonable here. Reasonable would have been not sleeping with my wife. Reasonable would have been staying the hell away from my marriage. But you didn't do that, did you? You saw something you wanted, and you took it. Consequences be damned. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. And now you're worried because the consequences are starting to catch up with you. His composure was cracking, the polished exterior giving way to something uglier underneath. You can't win this, Nick. Jenna's moved on. She's found someone who can give her what she needs. Maybe, but I can make sure it costs her everything she's worked for. I can make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person she really is. Is that really what you want? To destroy the woman you supposedly love? I loved the woman I thought I married. Turns out she never existed. I walked away, leaving him standing on the sidewalk. But I could feel his eyes on me as I drove away, and I knew this was far from over. The war had officially begun. 2 weeks later, everything came to a head at Mike Henderson's annual Halloween party. I almost didn't go. The last thing I wanted was to spend an evening making small talk with people who were probably gossiping about my failed marriage. But Mike had been my friend for 30 years, and he'd specifically asked me to come. "You can't hide forever," he'd said. "Besides, it'll do you good to get out of that house." So I went, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt while everyone else was in costume. The party was at Mike's house on Elm Street, a sprawling Victorian that his construction company had restored to magazine-worthy perfection. I was nursing a beer in the kitchen when Jenna walked in. She was dressed as some kind of 1920s flapper, all beads and feathers, and she looked stunning. For a moment, seeing her laughing with Mike's wife Sarah, I could almost pretend things were normal. That we'd driven here together, that we'd go home together, that 20 years of marriage meant something. Then I saw Liam Fitzgerald walk up behind her and put his hand on the small of her back, and the fantasy shattered. He was dressed as a 1920s gangster, perfectly coordinated with Jenna's costume. They'd planned it together, probably spent hours shopping for the perfect outfits, the perfect accessories. It was the kind of couple thing Jenna and I used to do, back when we were actually a couple. "Nick!" Sarah Henderson spotted me and waved me over. "I'm so glad you came." There was no graceful way to avoid the group, so I walked over. Jenna's smile faltered when she saw me, but she recovered quickly. "Hello, Nick," she said politely, as if I were a casual acquaintance instead of her husband of 20 years. "Jenna." I nodded to Liam. "Fitzgerald. Please, call me Liam. I'd rather not call you anything." The temperature in the group dropped about 20 degrees. Sarah, bless her heart, tried to salvage the conversation. "Your costumes are amazing," she said to Jenna and Liam. "You two look like you stepped out of The Great Gatsby." "Thank you," Jenna said. "Liam has excellent taste." The comment hit like a slap, a jab about my lack of costume, but really about everything else I lacked since Jenna left. Before I could answer, Tracy Morrison appeared in a witch's hat. Fitting. "Nick," she said coolly. "Surprised to see you here." "It's Mike's party," I said. "Mike's my friend." She tilted her head. "Are you sure about that?" The words hung in the air like a loaded gun. By the time I found Mike on the back deck, dread had already settled in. "Tracy says you're not really my friend anymore," I said. He sighed. "Nick, this thing with you and Jenna, it's complicated. We don't want to take sides." "There shouldn't be sides," I snapped. "She cheated. I got betrayed. That's not complicated." "Maybe it's not that simple," he muttered. "It's exactly that simple." When I realized I'd lost him too, something inside me shifted. "You're right," I said. "I am going to make a scene." I walked straight into the kitchen where Jenna and her boss Liam were surrounded by friends. The room fell silent as I raised my glass. "To my wife," I said, "and her boss. May they find in each other everything they couldn't find in their previous relationships." "Nick, stop," Jenna began. "Every Tuesday and Thursday," I continued. "Seaside Motel. Room 12. Romantic, right?" The color drained from her face. Liam froze. But here's the real punchline. While she was sharing a bed with him, she was also sharing my business information. Client lists, bids, project details. Nothing illegal, just betrayal dressed as pillow talk. "Enough," Liam said, stepping forward. "Oh, we're far past enough. Jenna's getting a man who ruins marriages, and Liam's getting a woman who spent 20 years lying to her husband. A perfect match." I set my glass down and walked out. No one stopped me. When I got home, Derek's BMW was in my driveway. Jenna's brother, the golden boy. "You humiliated my sister," he snapped. "She did that herself," I said. I just turned on the lights. "You're a small man, Nick. She needed more than you could give." "You mean she needed someone who wasn't married to her?" "You think you've won something," he sneered. "You never deserved her." That was it. 2 decades of contempt boiled over. I grabbed his jacket and slammed him against the door. "You want truth?" I hissed. "Your sister's a liar. Her lover's a coward. And you—" I shoved him again. "You're a parasite living off a family name." He struggled, but I didn't care. "I built something real," I said. "A business, a home, a marriage she threw away for a man who couldn't pay his own bills." When I finally let go, Derek's face was pale. "This isn't over," he said. "It's been over since the day she sent those messages." He left without another word. Mrs. Delaney's curtains shifted next door. By morning, the whole town would know. Inside, I poured a drink and sat in the silence. The man I'd been that morning, the one who cared about appearances, who still wanted to fix things, was gone. In his place was someone colder, harder, someone who'd stopped apologizing for telling the truth, someone who was ready to finish what Jenna started. The end, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.